Hey, it's Avi from JustWriteMusic.com. Thanks for joining me. Today, I'm sharing what I believe is the key to learning any instrument, no matter what age you are, no matter what your background is, doesn't matter. Music for everyone! Before we dive in, if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and bell below to get more videos helping you make better music and stay sane as an artist. Learning an instrument is hard. It takes a lot of time to progress and gain any type of proficiency. This is understandably a big barrier to entry, especially today. With my students, I'm very direct and open about the difficulty and about the time investment that's required to actually get to a place of proficiency with an instrument. I think it creates a more realistic and accurate foundation to start learning from. So the first thing I really want to break down about this is what causes people to quit. In my experience as a teacher, there's a few things that I've come across that are generally present when a student decides to stop taking lessons. First, we got not sounding good. This is a big one. We all want to sound amazing right out of the gate. I see a lot of students stop taking lessons because they feel like they don't have great tone or great technique, and they think they're doing everything wrong or enough wrong to beat themselves up about it. The reality is they're usually not doing everything wrong. Another big thing is high expectations. Just like the last one, we expect great things from ourselves. We want to sound like our favorite artists and write the music that we love to listen to, but sometimes we can want it so badly that we actually put pressure on ourselves. That desire to be good is also stemmed from another big factor, which is instant gratification. Yes, it's cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. So much in our world today is so fast and so convenient. There are fewer and fewer things in our lives that require us to invest a lot of time and delay our gratification. Learning an instrument is one of these. Now that we know what causes people to quit, it's time to look at some solutions. And in my experience, the best thing to do is to ground ourselves. Let's take all the factors that we just mentioned and create some solutions for them that are grounded in reality. The first one is not sounding good. The fix for this is being okay sounding bad. As instrumentalists, we're always challenging ourselves and growing and learning. There's no escaping it. We are required to weather the storm of mistakes and half-executed concepts before we're able to play what we want to. Like, for real. My solution for this, because it can be really painful for some people, and I was one of these people. My solution is to laugh with yourself when the inevitable mistakes are going to happen. Any musician worth their salt will tell you that it's not making mistakes that count, it's how you recover from those mistakes. That's a better test of musicianship than whether or not you can play something perfectly. There's no shortcut here, unfortunately. We can't just buy the next level up in our musical abilities. We have to put the time in and be consistent. This means that we're not going to sound good objectively until we've already sounded bad for quite a bit. In order to get over this, in order to get over not sounding great, we have to be okay sounding bad. The next big thing was high expectations, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to understand that we are a beginner. This helps us set our expectations appropriately, which is like so important. If you just started painting yesterday, was it reasonable to expect yourselsistine to paint something like the Sistine Chapel? No way. That's ridiculous. Knowing where you are on your journey and owning that space is going to set you up for tremendous growth. The learning never stops, and the best learners tend to also exhibit some form of humility. This is important for accepting new information into your worldview. Finally, the fix for instant gratification is to remind ourselves that growth is probably going to be slow in the short term. This is especially true if you're starting from scratch on your first instrument. The journey never ends, and that's honestly a really fantastic thing. It never gets boring. Expect to be playing for at least a couple of years before you're able to reach some reliable proficiency on your instrument. The most important factor in this equation by far is you and your attitude. If you can be cool with sounding bad by laughing at yourself and understand that you're a beginner and set your expectations appropriately, you'll actually speed up the growth and the learning process because you're removing cognitive resistance that only takes up time and energy. But there's one more piece of the puzzle that is the linchpin in all of this. Without this one, nothing will happen, nothing will work. And that's practice. Don't just practice, rather create a practice. I think it's important to look at practicing music and practicing our instrument in both its verb and its noun form. Both of these will have different feelings and different meanings to us and our lives. Talking about practicing and shifting from the verb to a noun creates a subtle shift in our perspective. Instead of just thinking about single practice sessions, we're now thinking about our guitar practice as a whole. Think about yourself as someone with a practice in guitar or a practice in piano. This shifts our attention to the results of our playing, to what the result and effect of playing and learning music and learning this instrument is on our lives. By looking at it as a practice with a role in our life, this also makes us look at the pragmatic benefits that it gives to our mental and physical health. Keep this in mind because we're going to circle back to it at the end, okay? Okay, now that we're looking at it not just in single practice sessions, but also as a practice for our lives, I know it's super new agey and gross, but it works, I promise. Now it's time to set up an actual practice schedule. The key here is to create one that works for you. You don't have to go crazy here. Try and practice 3 to 5 times a week for at least 20 or 30 minutes each time. That's a great place to start and all you need to make some solid progress. Always start slow in the beginning, no matter what anybody says. If you have a teacher that's saying you have to practice for an hour every single day of the week, do not listen to them, especially if you're just beginning. Depending on your goals, that's more likely than not a bad teacher, at least in my opinion. Always start slow in the beginning and gradually increase how much you practice and how often you practice based on your actual desire to practice more. Speaking of teachers, go and grab one if you can afford it, especially if this is your first instrument. It's so worth it. I'll admit that I'm biased here because I am a teacher, but I've also been a student for way longer. I've seen a massive difference in the quality of my work and the quantity of my work. Both of them go up, like a lot, when I'm actively taking lessons versus not taking lessons at all. When I'm studying with a teacher, I feel like I'm making more music, better music, and making faster progress all at the same time. It's just a win-win-win-win everywhere. It's freaking worth it, I promise. Go do, if you can. Finally, we get to one of the hardest parts of the whole endeavor. Starting itself is by far the hardest thing and the biggest deal. So if you've already started, you've already done the hardest thing. Congrats, good for you. The kicker here, and the second hardest part, is sticking with it. This is where most people tend to fall off. And it's not just in learning music either, it's just, habits in general. It's hard to learn new habits. We need to really take some serious life hacks in order to make this work. We all have responsibilities in our lives, and it's easy, so easy to stop practicing and just let things go by the wayside. It's easy to convince ourselves that it's just guitar, or it's just piano, or it's just whatever instrument you choose to learn. It's not important really, and I guess we can just let it go, right? No, wrong. You wanted to do it for a reason. You likely thought about playing an instrument and playing music for years before actually doing it, especially if it's something you felt like you never got to continue or do earlier in your life. If it's something that you always wanted to do, it's worth all of it. And this is where we circle back to a practice, to using the word practice as a noun. This is a holistic approach. A practice is taken within the context of our whole lives, which in turn lets us remember all of the positive things that playing and learning a musical instrument gets us. It can make us feel amazing and capable and confident and sexy and all of these incredible things. Everyone wants more of all of these things in their lives. So why would we just decide that that stuff isn't worth it? This doesn't apply to just learning an instrument. This applies to any activity in your life that has positive benefits, any practice in your life, like exercising, for example. This is a great example for me personally. The days I exercise, I feel insanely better than the days that I don't, across the board. And the knowledge of the holistic benefit here, the exercise makes all of my life better in every single way. Knowing that and taking the time to remember that helps me maintain my exercise habit. And when I've fallen off, it helps give me motivation to start back up again. And the big thing about a practice, just because you stop for a while doesn't mean you can't come back. And that's what's most important, coming back. So there you have it. If you can be cool not sounding awesome right out of the gate, understand that it might be a while until you do, and you can set your expectations to fit your context, to fit where you are in your journey, literally any instrument is yours to learn. And after you've learned that first instrument, any other instrument you want to learn comes far, far easier. This is because you don't need to also spend time learning fundamentals and musicianship. All you're working on with a second instrument is the sheer technique of playing. Like I said at the beginning of this video, this is essentially a longer form of the disclaimer that I give to every single one of my students. And I've had a ton of success by doing so. My students know what to expect from day one, what they're going to sound like, how long they're going to sound like it, and what it takes to sound good. They know right out of the gate. This is especially helpful for people who are naturally pretty hard on themselves. Yo, that's me. Mindset and attitude are so important. Seriously, from super young to super not young, I've seen this work across the board. Seriously, like my oldest beginner student, mid to late 60s, still worked. Not even joking. And I'm talking like zero musical experience prior. They just had thought about it and wanted to play for decades and didn't start until after they retired. More power to them. That's amazing. Before we head out, I want to tell you about my free guide, 7 Ways to Write a More Effective Melody. It's super valuable and contains tips and tricks that I use every single time I sit down to workshop and write a melody. There's a link down in the doobly-doo, or you can head to justwritemusic.com and let me know where to send it. Thank you guys so much for being here and for hanging out with me. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below with what you think it takes to learn an instrument and whether or not you agreed with anything I said. And I also want to know, what instruments have you totally given up on? I've given up on plenty, and I will put them down in the comments as well. I'm Avi from justwritemusic.com, and don't forget to be awesome. Peace out.